that, take a deep breath in and let it go. Another deep breath, letting it go. One more deep breath in. Hmm. And so this year, our theme we are exploring is a grand rising. And really, this whole year's invitation is this invitation into our own individual and collective evolution. Really, that grand rising is about being part of that which is rising up in the world, that which is new, that which is emerging. And this month's theme, which comes from visioning from a team of folks around the organization who put these together, this month's theme is That's How We've Never Done It. Which is, I have been chewing on as all week. That's how, what? It's English is a fun thing to mix up sometimes. That's how we've never done it. And I was thinking about this week, about this theme of evolution, of participating in the evolutionary process. And I realized that the history of evolution of life on Earth has been full of that's never how we've done it moments. Right? I was thinking about those first organisms that crawled out of the ocean onto dry land, and everybody else in the water going, well, that's never how we've done it. That as we were crawling around on four legs for a couple million years, suddenly someone stood up one time and everyone else went, well, that's never how we've done it. Right? And yet, that's what evolution looks like. Right? When we step out into the new, when we embrace the possible, when we become that which we are becoming, it's going to be full of moments where we have to greet life, greet situation, think about ourselves or someone or something in a way that perhaps we've never allowed ourselves to think about it before. That if we actually want to evolve, if we actually want to become more of who we are meant to be, then it means we kind of have to let go of how we've always done it and think about the ways we've never done it. Right? I think about the history of this community here and also of Centers for Spiritual Living, as I just came back from the Spiritual Living Conference 2 weeks ago, that we often love the ways that we've always done things. Right? It's comfortable. But our organization, this community, just last month, we just turned 60, by the way, this center. And so we're going to be starting to celebrate our 60th anniversary throughout this year and keep reminding us that there's a legacy, there's a history here, right? And at the same time, for I think a long time, we here, and maybe we've all done this in our own individual lives, had got very comfortable with how things were, with who was in the room, with what we were doing, and things didn't change much for a long time because we just continued to operate in the way that we always had been. And then as we came in and we started to shift things up and mix things up and start to do things differently, I know in the first year that I was here, at least, maybe still a little bit, I've gotten a lot of, well, that's never how we've done it. And my response, sometimes sarcastically, sometimes quite seriously, has been, well, how's that worked out? And if we look at our lives, if we look at our circumstances, if we look what's unfolding personally, collectively, individually, in the world, everything we're experiencing right now, whatever it is the result of how we were doing it. And if it looks like what we're getting isn't what we want or isn't working, well, then let's try something we've never tried before. Right? We call this movement that we are part of New Thought. Which might be an invitation, right? To continuously be on the edge of creating, emerging into, thinking into new thoughts. Because it's the patterns of our thinking, it's the patterns of our behavior, it's the patterns of the way that we've moved through life that have gotten us to where we are. And if we don't like where we are, then maybe it's time to think up some new thoughts. Just to look at, okay, I've learned everything I can from doing it the way that I've always done it. What could I learn now if I look forward in a new way and ask myself, how have I never done it? What would it look like to step out into your life, into your healing, into your relationship, into your job, into whatever the thing is that you're working on? What would it look like to step out into that area of your life and take the opportunity to do something completely differently? How could that potentially change the situation? Because what I know is that whatever we're looking for, whatever we're looking through, whatever we are looking, the lens we are looking through is what we're going to see. And so if we want to see something different, sometimes it means we have to shift up our perspective to look in a new way. Right? And I look at our global society, our American society, I look at things that are going on in the world around us. And it's like, we really could use some new thoughts, right? And a lot of the ways that we have been doing things the way that we've always done it really wasn't working. But we bought into the comfortability of the familiarity of the uncomfortability. And we'd rather sit in what's comfortable, no matter how painful or ugly or destructive it could be, then step out into the unknown and do something new, do something completely differently. And yet, that's where the possibility lies. That's where your healing is. That's where something new is waiting for you. But it means we actually have to move. We have to be willing to let go of what we think we know and maybe be willing to be open to the fact that maybe we didn't know. I personally don't like to be proven wrong. Ever. And yet, that is often where my growing edge is. When I find out that perhaps there's a way that I didn't see something, a way that I didn't know something, perhaps there's something that wasn't in my perspective, and then suddenly, once I get that awareness, it shifts everything. You know, many of us have a lot of privilege, which means that there are things we don't know about other people's experience. And it might be a little bit painful to realize some of the ways that we have unconsciously been perpetuating the systems of oppression that have been hurting other people. But once I know, well, then it gives me the opportunity to look at myself, to do that inner work, to do that deep introspection and reflection, to then see, okay, if I've unconsciously been perpetuating things that I don't want to see in the world, what would it look like to be consciously perpetuating the things that I do want to see in the world? And that's a whole different game, right? The power of our consciousness is incredibly creative. Our consciousness is incredibly powerful. But Ernest Holmes, founder of this philosophy, Science of Mind, says that trained thought is much more powerful than untrained thought. Right? And so there's lots of unconscious thoughts that are creating in the world, but we're here in a place where we're taught, where we learn, where we can study, where we can take classes to teach ourselves how to think, to train our minds to be on purpose, for us to be a people who are consciously, purposefully creating the world that we want to see. And that consciousness is actually way more powerful than the unconscious activity that's at work. So let's be a people who are dedicated to becoming on purpose, to thinking on purpose, to being as conscious, awake, and aware as we possibly can. But that's going to also mean that we have to be willing to ride that edge of what we don't know, to be on that leading edge of where are the new thoughts, which also means that we have to be willing to look at ourselves and be willing to ask, where are we clinging on to those old thoughts? Where would we rather be comfortable than change? You know, there's a lot of stuff up in the world. You've noticed, I'm sure. And in I'm not going to go into any details about any particular thing right now, but it's amazing how often I hear people say, well, that's just how I've always known it. Well, that's how I've always done it. I'm just comfortable with that. And is that more important than stopping someone else's pain? Just a question. Are we willing to let go of how we've always done it and maybe begin to look at how we've never done it and see if maybe that's the change that's needed? And that can be an invitation for each one of us as we look at our lives in any of those stuck or difficult or uncomfortable places. If you're struggling in your relationship, if you're struggling with your health, if you're struggling with getting your needs met, maybe look at how you've always done it. And then think about the ways that you've never tried it before, the ways that you've never approached the situation, the ways that you've never allowed yourself to look at it. Because maybe by looking in a different way, you'll see something that you didn't see before. Because if we just keep looking at the same thing through the same lens day in and day out, we're going to potentially even lose our ability to see outside of that perspective, which means we have to practice, right? Your brain is kind of like a muscle. You have to work it out. If you don't work it, if you don't try, if you don't move beyond the comfortable, it will atrophy. And your brain is also set up to program you to just perpetuate whatever you perpetuate. So if you're perpetuating the same thing all the time, your brain tells you that that's the truth. But if you perpetuate a perspective that is constantly looking for newness, your brain will then become programmed, will then become an automatic to start looking for those things that you weren't able to see before. Does that make sense? And one of the spiritual technologies, we'll call it, that I think that we offer in this place and that we practice here as a community is the power of prayer to turn our minds in a different direction. Right? That's this process of spiritual mind treatment that we do, the prayers that you hear me speak, the prayers that you hear our practitioners speak. We have a formula, we have a method that we use that helps us train our minds to look in a new way, to look for new thoughts, to be reminded of a higher truth, even when the circumstances seem to tell us something else. And I know that I have seen miracles. I have seen dramatic changes in people's health, in people's lives, in people's circumstances when we use the power of prayer to tell our minds, tell our physical brains that there's a different truth going on than what we can see. And when we choose to look to that higher perspective, suddenly something else starts to become available. So take a deep breath in and let it go. I want to invite you just to think to yourself for a moment about some area of your life. It could be a relationship, it could be health, it could be how you feel about what's happening in the world. But think of some place of struggle. And think to yourself for a moment about how you've always done it. The way that you've greeted this relationship, the way that you've thought about your health, the way that you've held what's happening in the world. And just think about the program that you've been running all along. And then take another deep breath. And now just invite into your mind, what is a way that I've never thought about this? How have I never done this before? What would be a new thought? And just imagine for a moment that new thought then opens a door in your mind. On the other side of that door, there are new possibilities, new ways of thinking, new ways of being, new ways of addressing the situation. And so in your mind's eye, in your imagination, in the felt sense within your body, if you are willing, I invite you to simply imagine or think about or feel yourself walking through that door. And telling yourself that as you do so, new perspectives and new ways start to show up. What would it look like for you in your own life to take those first steps out of the water in which you've been swimming and step out onto a new land to gain a new perspective? What would it look like to truly stand up and rise into a new way of seeing? So take another deep breath and let it go. Another deep breath in. Let it go. One more deep breath and let it go. So what I know is that there is one seamless presence that is living and breathing throughout the entirety of the universe. That it is this one who is unfolding, who is living, who is breathing in, through, and as everyone, everything, every when, everywhere, one conscious energy, one life force, one power, one presence. I call it God. Perhaps you call it the universe. Perhaps you call it energy or consciousness or the divine, whatever word you have for it. I don't care what you call it. I just care that you call it. So let's call upon this one truth that there is only one of us here, and that one is living as every person on this planet. That indeed every life is sacred, that indeed every life is divine. Not only every human life, every animal life, every plant life, the life of the planet itself, all of it is sacred. So in this moment of collective prayer, can we just call upon that realization, not only for ourselves, but for humanity? That we awaken to our spiritual magnificence, that we awaken to the realization that the sacred is everywhere, so that from the depths of our heart as a collective society, as a global family, that we can call for a ceasefire on all war everywhere forever from now on. Let us stop what we have been doing. Let us stop the way that we've been doing it all along, and let's try something we've never tried before. To lift our consciousness to the more, to lift our consciousness into love, to lift our consciousness into a place of healing. Because if there's only one of us here, then how could we be anything and do anything but be and fall in love with each other? And so in this moment, I just speak a word of gratitude for this community, for who we are becoming, for our individual and collective willingness to let go a little bit of that which has made us comfortable all along and stepping into the new ways of doing and being. Because we are writing a new story, we are writing a new script, we are creating a new version of how we want to be in the world. And as each one of us makes that choice, as we as a community makes that choice, as Centers for Spiritual Living around the world rises in this year of grand rising to a new formation of who we are in the world, we then can be a place of invitation for all of humanity, for all people, for all beings to step up into that evolution. Let us be the people who step out into that evolutionary new way, where those around us say, well, that's never how we've done it. But that looks really good. Maybe there's something new that is calling us forward. So let us say yes to it. And so I say yes. As I let it be. And so it is. So take another deep breath. I'm going to invite Shira to join me up here. So if you've been with us for some time, you know, and if you're new here today, the first Sunday of the month, we take the opportunity to do a little extra collective prayer. To use the power of our collective consciousness, the power of our collective intention, to lift up the prayers that are here in this space, that are on our heart, that are living in the people here in this place. And the thing that I know is that Lynn McTaggart in the Power of Eight in the Intention Experiment says that any time a group of people focus on the same thing at the same time, something more becomes available. Or she says the power of intention multiplies depending on how many people are thinking the same thought at the same time. So that's also the power of collective prayer. When we rally together around a person, around an idea, around a possibility, around something that we're calling forward, and we all put our attention on it at the same time, we activate, we magnify, we open the possibilities. So what we're going to do for the next few minutes is I'm going to open up a space. And if there's anyone here who would like to ask for prayer from this group of people, which is also a radically brave act to do, to say, you know what, this is how I've always done it, that's how I've never done it, and I want to make the shift, right? If there's a healing that you need in your body, if there's a forgiveness that you need in your heart, if there's something that you want to call in for yourself or the world, this is the opportunity. And we will make that a collective prayer, and then I'm going to invite everybody here to use the power of your voice, the power of your consciousness, to speak, to activate, to chant, to tone, to sing that prayer into existence, okay? So, who wants to receive some prayer today? Come on up, Robert. Tell us your prayer.
Well, on January 20th, you all know I had a fall. I'm very humbled. It was in a rainstorm, and it was discovered I have spondylolisthesis, which is a bone deformity between the fourth and fifth vertebrae. And I've been coming here for probably 15 years. And I used to play bass over here for you all. So I'd like a prayer for my backbone, my fourth and fifth vertebrae, for a healing so I can go out there and continue to serve.
Absolutely. So I'm going to invite you to stand right down here. And can I ask a couple of my practitioners, maybe Tamara, or Tamara if you're available, or Cheryl, just to come stand with Robert. And I'm going to invite everybody else to stand up. And Shira's going to play the crystal bowls, and I'm going to invite her to bring some toning, to bring the power of her voice into the room. And that's also permission for you to do the same. I know many of you are trained by Reverend Deborah Johnson at Inner Light to do spiritual mind treatment, to do prayer. I invite you to use the power of your voice in this room. If you have a tone, if you have a mantra, if you have a prayer, even just to sing the words healing, healing, healing over and over and over again, we're going to give all of our love and attention to this person, Robert Perala, who is standing right here, right now. This is a prayer for physical healing, a prayer for support, a prayer for strength, a prayer for vitality. So take a deep breath in and let it go. Take another deep breath in and let it go. One more deep breath. Breathe in. And let us give our prayer to this beloved here and now. So right here and right now, as I speak my word, I invite the collective voice of this room to speak Because what I know is that there is only one of us here. There is one life. There is one power. There is one presence. There is one pattern of wholeness that comes from the divine mind into each one of us. And so, as I know that in the mind of God, there is a perfect pattern for Robert's body, for every bone in his body, for the skeletal structure, for all that supports him and lifts him up. What I know is that that divine pattern is perfect. That divine pattern is whole. That divine pattern is absolutely complete. And so we open up this space right here and right now to remember the perfection of this individual who stands before us in this moment. And so as we breathe together, as we speak together, as we raise this vibration, let us remind Robert's body how to remember that wholeness. Let us remind his body how to remember that strength. Let us remind his body how to open up and receive that pattern of wholeness, wellness, and perfection. Because what I know is that there is a power greater than he is, greater than we are, that supports him, that lifts him up, that strengthens him, that pattern is encoded in every cell, in every tissue, in every muscle, in every function, in every bone of the body. And so let us be in this moment a place of believing in the possibility that a healing can happen, that the body can rejuvenate itself, that the body can bring itself back to that perfect state of homeostasis and alignment. And so for Robert, I also speak a word of support, knowing that he is supported in his life, in all that he seeks to be and do in the world, and that he is seen, that he is known, that he is felt for the being, the love that he shines in this life. And so I give gratitude for Robert. I give gratitude for all the ways that he shows up in the world, knowing that he is a shining presence, that he is a healing presence, that he is one that the world needs. And so we lift him up so that he may be the greatest possible version of himself. And I also speak a word for anyone here in this space who's seeking healing in the physical body, that this prayer is also for them, that anyone here who needs that strength, who needs that alignment, that it is available right here and right now. And so I speak this word remembering, knowing, claiming, and declaring that there is a power for good in this universe that is so much greater than we are, that has been driving evolution for all of time, that has been mending bones, that has been healing bodies, that has been evolving all of life. And it is that very same power that is at work right here and right now in the collective consciousness of this room as we wrap it around this beloved that we know as Robert, that we know here and now that a healing is taking place. Not only for him, but for all of us and for all of life. Because indeed there is only one of us here, and let that one reveal its absolute perfection right here, right now. Take a deep breath in. Let it go. Deep breath in. Let it go. One more deep breath. And let it go. And so I say, and so it is.
Thank you, guys.
So the floor is open. We'll take a couple opportunities for healing today. Is there anyone else who wants to receive? Come on down. Hi, Paula. So if you can just give us in a sentence what the request is.
My request is for peace, justice, safety, and healing for all Palestinians.
Absolutely. So you heard it, friends. Take a deep breath in and let it go. Take a deep breath in again and let go. Before we speak, I want to bring in this awareness that not only are we praying for the people of Gaza, we are praying for the healing of the consciousness that brings war into the world. So we also bring in the people of Ukraine, the people of Sudan. There are people all over this world who need our love, who need our prayer. So let's make this prayer as big as we possibly can. So take another deep breath and let it go. And Paula, thank you for being the holder and the focus of this prayer. Friends, let us speak our words here and now. So here and now, once again, I claim, know, and declare that all life is sacred. That the one life, that the one power, the one presence, the one spirit that I call God, the beloved, the infinite one, is living and breathing in everyone, in everything, everywhen, everywhere, all the time. And when I say there is no spot where God is not, that means that on any side of any border, all is God. All is love. And so, here in this moment, as I remember that every life is sacred, that every Palestinian life is sacred, that every Ukrainian life is sacred, that every Ugandan life is sacred, that every Israeli life is sacred, that every Russian life is sacred, that every American life is sacred, that indeed every life is sacred, let us lift up the consciousness of humanity in this moment, right here and right now, that we may stop the way that we have been doing things up until now, that we may stop the oppression, that we may stop the invasions, that we may stop the genocide, that we may stop all of the things that no longer serve who we are, because who we are becoming is an evolved humanity. Who we are becoming is a compassionate humanity. Who we are becoming is one human family that recognizes the intrinsic value of every living being on this planet. And so in that awareness, let us banish that which no longer serves. Let us banish war. Let us banish any seeming sense of separation. Let us banish any seeming sense of power over, that we may lift our society, that we may lift our global consciousness into an awareness that we are here because of and for each other. We are in here in service to life. We are here to lift each other up, and that there is no way that we can do anything to anyone else without realizing that that is what we are doing to ourselves in the process. Because if there's only one of us here, how we treat the other is how we are treating God. And so if the Spirit of the living God were to show up in front of each one of us, how would we treat them? How would we receive them? If we realize that it is that living presence that is living on the other side of any border that we may have any thoughts about, let us remember that that too is our spiritual sibling. That too is our spiritual reflection, because, again, there is only one of us here. So let us in this moment make this a prayer for true peace. For peace between all nations, for peace between all people, for peace in every home, for peace in every heart. Because when we conjure that truth, that peace, that love, that harmony, that remembrance that God is all that there is, we create a space where nothing other than that can exist. So let us move towards an evolutionary consciousness that brings us towards a world that works for all, that brings us towards a world where we remember the sacred in every life, that even brings us to a place where we realize that every land is holy land, that every place we step our foot is a holy place, that the earth herself is sacred. So let us move to a place where we remember, we live in the absolute truth that God is all that there is, and that there is nothing, and that there is no one that we are willing to even conceive is outside of that truth. And so in this moment, I can give a word of gratitude for the opportunity to speak this truth freely here in this place. And I celebrate a future moment where we as humanity say yes to love and nothing else. And so in that, I can surrender in this moment, knowing that the vibrations of this collective prayer ripple out around the world. And we breathe. And we breathe. And we breathe. And so it is. Thank you. Take a deep breath in. And so let's just take this moment here and now and the vibration, the resonance of this prayer. That if there's anyone here who's seeking healing in the physical body in any way, If you're able, I invite you just to stand up right now and even raise your arms up into the air above you, remembering that in the mind of the divine, for each one of us, there is a template, a pattern of wholeness for our perfect health and wellness and physical vitality. Reach up and imagine that you could just grab that perfect pattern and pull it down over and into your body. And as you do so, take a deep breath in and adjust. Stand up a little taller, breathe a little deeper, spread out your shoulders, your arms, and feel that template of wholeness, that pattern of perfection washing over you. And if there's any one of us here and even online, you can do the same thing we're doing here in the room. If there's anyone who's seeking healing in the areas of abundance, of finances, of prosperity, of having your basic or any of your needs met, I invite you to stand up right now and open your arms up wide. Tilt your head back a little bit, raise your eyebrows, and smile. In that willingness to accept your good. And if there's anyone here in this space who's seeking healing in the areas of love, relationship, or forgiveness, this is your opportunity to stand up. First, placing your hands on your heart, taking a deep, deep breath, and then opening your arms and sending that love out, knowing that as you do so, it comes back and you are able to receive it again. Open your arms and then sweep that love and bring it back to your own heart. And so if there is anyone who is on your heart in this moment or in your mind that you want to include in this collective prayer we have cultivated here together today, I invite you to speak those names out loud right now. And I just feel called to speak a word for every person who is running for any position of leadership in this nation, that their minds be open to this divine truth, that there is only one of us here, that we are here in service to each other and in service to life, and that our one great, high, and holy purpose is to reveal love and be in service to God in the other. And so for all of this and the more, I just say yes. I say, and so it is. I say, amen. I say, ashe. I say, abracadabra. There it is.